Thank you for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about AHOA, how big it is, how many motels are part of it?
Sure. So thank you first, Lily, for having me on. My name is Bharat Patel. I'm the chairman of AAHOA, the Asian American Hotel Owners Association. We have over 20,000 members representing more than 34,000 hotels nationwide in America.
What is its contribution in U.S. economy?
So we've done an Oxford study, and I'll provide it for you, but I think it's almost 1.7% of the GDP of the United States. So it's in the billions.
This is majority of the AHOA members are Indian Americans, and of them, again, majority of them are for people from Gujarat, right?
Yep.
What's the key to it?
Yeah, I've been asked many times by many leaders about this. The quickest, best answer is it became our thing. I was talking to somebody, elected official in New Jersey, right? And he's like, Italians come to America, they do pizzeria or something like that, right? So there's something in our culture, Indian Americans and then Gujaratis, where, we have an entrepreneurial tradition, but I think it also matches with the farming tradition, right? And so what I mean by that is, and a lot of people have done studies. I remember they were talking about math and other things. And, so my best analogy is something like this. There are students who are asked, how come you don't understand calculus, right? And they ask students in Japan, in America, in Iowa, and in Gujarat. And they also ask people who are farmers' children and non-farmers' children. And the non-farmers' children would always say, well, I just don't get it. My mind doesn't work that way. But the farmers' children would always say, because I didn't work hard enough, something of that shape. And so there's something about my father is, I'm the proud son of a sixth generation farmer, right? My dad before him, Maganbai, Ukubai, you can go on and on. We know our names, right, of our ancestors. And all of these people, they were farmers, and you reap what you sow. So there's something about small business and also motels and hotels in America is that you have to plant the seed, you have to work extremely hard in the beginning, and then throughout the times you have to cultivate it. And so there's just something about it, right? And so a typical contract in the hotel business, if you're franchised, right? So almost 2/3 of our members have a franchise hotel. And you recognize these brands around the world, whether it be Marriott, Hilton, Holiday Inn, all IHG, all these other hotel brands around the world, right? And so 2/3 are there. And so every 5 to 6 to 7 years, 3 to 5 years even, you have to renovate and do other special things, right? So it's like the planting season, right? You don't plant one crop, you plant multiple crops and then you stagger them, right? And so maybe it's that part of the culture. The other part is entrepreneurial tradition, but also the co-op tradition, right? So whether it's a sugarcane, Bartley Sugar Factory or other things, you have that entrepreneurialism, but you got to team it together, right? So we have families, right? So my father, my kaka, my uncle, my other aunts, uncles, everybody, they come to America. And initially, many of them did jobs, right? But then something happened whether it's a recession or something else, and they branch out into other things. And so it doesn't have to be the most lucrative thing in year one, but it does over time. And so Lalit it's a complicated sort of answer, but the real great thing about where we hail from, where we come from, is, like I said, I don't think it would happen if it wasn't for the entrepreneurial tradition and the co-oping, and for the farming tradition, where we know that if we work hard, there is an output at the end.
I'll add one more thing based on my experience. Our culture of Atithi Devo Bhava, the
Yes.
way the people from Indian American Gujarat, people from Gujarat, provide the service to the customers who come into the hotel, treat them as
Right.
a guest, personal guest, right? That helps a lot.
Yeah, hospitality,
And
like you said, in a word, hospitality, the entrepreneurial tradition. When it comes to hospitality, some people have asked me, does Patel mean hospitality in your language, right? Or is Patel a village in India? Because there's so many Patels, so many places, right? But what I tell them is exactly what you said, Tito Baba, is that the hospitality tradition that we have, our family has, and many families have around the world, and especially in America, because we're immigrants, right? You usually first, second, third generation. I'm a second generation hotelier. My dad was first. My son may be third, but I've met third and now even fourth generation hoteliers, because many of them came a couple of decades before.
Thank you. One of the main purpose for doing this interview today is talk about Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US next month. As you know, Prime Minister Modi has been invited by President Biden for his state visit. He is only the third Indian leader to be invited to the US on an official state visit, and
Yes.
only the third in the during the Biden administration for invited for the state visit. How do you see this moment as, and how I guess AHOA has a strong tradition, has a historic tradition of relationship with Prime Minister Modi as well. He has a strong support base among hotel motel owners here. How do you see his coming next month?
Yes, look, there's been a strong tradition, among AAHOA, all the way back to when Modi ji was chief minister of Gujarat, right? And so, we're going back to 2004, 2005 even. So there's a strong tradition, strong relationships between our members and Gujarat, where many of us hail from. What I would say is that we're really honored and privileged to have Modi ji visit America again. Last time was Howdy Houston. This time he's coming to, I believe it's DC. And so we're happy to have him in the nation's capital. We'll be partaking in some of the activities. I believe there's also the International Yoga Day and the state dinner and the White House lawn event. So a lot of things happening. And I think it's in a 2 or 3 day span. I know that many of our members will be excited, over the moon, super excited just to have him here on American soil and talk about the issues that matter most to all of us, right? And so, whether it's freedom and liberty or better trade among the two countries, it's going to be a tremendous experience, I think.
AHOA has written a letter to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy requesting him to invite Prime Minister Modi for addressing him for the joint session of Congress. Have you
Yep.
received any response from him, and how optimistic you are that he will get an invite?
Well, being in the hospitality business, we have to be optimistic, right? And being Indian and Gujarati, we have to be optimistic, right? So I'm very optimistic. A joint session of Congress is a privilege. It's an honor. I believe it's been afforded one previous time to Modi ji, Prime Minister Modi, and I think there'll be another opportunity. We have been in communication. Let's. I got my fingers crossed. Let's see what happens over the next couple of days and weeks. There is a little big, huge issue of the debt limit coming up right now in America. So there's a lot of legislation, other activities going on that are taking some of the limelight in the media. But let's see what happens.
As someone representing the hotel motels in this country, and also having roots in Gujarat, how do you see the 9 years of Prime Minister Modi's governance in India? Where has India gone during these 9 years?
Right. So I was there in Houston, right, and I remember Prime Minister Modi talking with the then President Trump, and they were discussing India and the oldest democracy in the world, the United States, and the largest democracy in the world, right? And so many values that we share, freedom and liberty. And I remember him saying, you've I want you now to introduce you to my family, and the crowd are up to it, right? And so what that says to me is that there are a lot of common values. We're not only are we both democracies, but we believe in private property rights. We believe in liberties afforded to citizens. There are so many things that we have in common among the two countries. And I think it's with the ascendancy of other countries around the world in world trade, I think it's really important at this key time, in the early part of the century, that these two nations align and they work together to have better trade, including immigration and other things. It's really important, I think, with nations that are like-minded. In the past, I think it's been more of the European nations, but I think like-minded nations come together and they work and interact on issues that matter to most, right? Whether it's on the security level, whether it's on the trade level, whether it's on immigration level. There's so many things that India has in common with America, but there's so many opportunities for whether it's Americans to go to India, including Indian Americans, and Indians to trade with Americans here, right? I think there's so much opportunities. And I think the last 10, 15 years has just been the start of this great friendship and great relationship. I think there's much more to go when it comes to the trade relationship between India and America. I think we're just, starting.
Anything specific that you would like to recommend that these two countries should go and do in the trade?
Yeah, humbly so. I would say, look, dialogue and communication is very important, but beyond that would also be, where there's more the trading mechanism and the immigration mechanism, I think needs to be more robust, right? So if just think about it this way, right now, and I previously lived in England for a couple of years too, is you just hop on a flight, right? Whether it's for business, whether it's for leisure travel, pleasure travel, you can just go from one country to the next, right? And I think that kind of intermodal travel is so important for India, right? And so I think that's one of the key things. If you have to plan a vacation or a trip 6 months or a year in advance because of visa regulations, that's really hard, right? But I remember, the Modi government, I know many people that got their visa online, they apply, and then they just fly to India, last minute trip, and they pick up their visa there, right? And they get entry, temporary visitor entry. So there's lots of mechanisms now with the technology that we have that we can sort of bridge the divide, I think conflict results in not having a strong dialogue or strong relationship, not having an understanding of each other's countries, right? Or respect for each other. So I think the way to bridge that divide is to bring people together.
AAHOA is one of the most influential professional organizations in the US, not only in terms of its contribution to the GDP, but also the employment it creates and how closely it funds several elected representatives across the country. When the
Right.
two leaders meet next month, what would be your wish list or message to them?
Wow. Yeah. Look, the wish list always starts with peace on earth, right? So, um, look, my wish list would be that they forge a new, stronger relationship. Again, the oldest democracy in the world, the largest democracy in the world. Also, my wish list would be, you know, immigration reform, trade trade agreements, more robust agreements between the countries, but also, a stronger, better cultural exchange. I think International Yoga Day is coming up on June 20th, I believe. And so there are so many gifts that India's given to the world in terms of culture, but also gifts that America's given to the world. And so just highlighting those things, but also having that bridge and divide come together would be really great.
One of the focus of Prime Minister has been to improve tourism in India and its related infrastructure.
Yep.
Can you give us a sense if AHOA is or its members are trying to help India in building those infrastructure in terms of hotels and motels, the experiences that you have?
Right. America has a strong tourism model, hospitality model, and I think it's also been used as an economic development tool, right? And so as India has an emerging middle class, I think it's really advantageous for, investors from America, whether it be home members or other investors in America, to really look at India and see where, for example, America was 50, 60 years ago. And so right now, you've got those expansions of freeways, superstructures, going up everywhere. But having the opportunity to be able to stay at different hotels along the way would be tremendous, right? Because right now, in America, you have different kinds of travelers. You have the ones that kind of plan and the ones that don't. In India, there's a lot of rail travel, but now car travel is and so you also have that travel where it's unplanned, right? And the weekend travel. And I think that's a huge opportunity in India. I believe the middle class is over 300 million people in India, which means that's, almost larger than the size of the population of the United States, right? And so there's a tremendous opportunity in India. I think members of AHOA, many of them are interested in investing in India, especially in that sector. I believe that it'd be good to have conversations with the government of India and AHOA members and AHOA leadership about that. But I'm really, look, I'm grateful for the visit, for the Prime Minister to make it to America, but I'm looking forward to supplemental visits and also meetings with government officials talking about what their plans are and how they want to enhance the hospitality sector, tourism sector in India.
Anything that you like the Modi government to do so that AHOA members can go and help in building the tourism sector, hospitality sector in India?
Sure. There's a saying I think in America is you have to roll out the red carpet, right? So there are many of our members that do visit India annually. You know, um, if there are projects that the government or even local leaders are backing, that I think that would be important. But really, I've heard this term shovel ready. So there are projects and um, developments that might be ready to be poised to develop immediately. And I think that's the key.
India has always now, in the last 10 years, have talked about ease of doing business. And in hospitality industry, where you establish the hotels, motels, a lot of licenses, other things required. Uh, Based on the experiences of other AHOA members who have invested in India in building those hotels, motels, has things improved? Or what are the areas of improvement in that hospitality sector?
Yeah, I think, look, there's always room for improvement, right? As we talked earlier about optimism. But I do believe that right now, the opportunities, there's a lot of headwinds, right? Supply chain issues, inflation, the cost of borrowing, right? But I believe that, our members, every member I've talked to, we're looking forward. We're forward facing. We're looking for the next opportunity. And I think that's what's key.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much.